Media.
Relief, recover, and rebuild. How to navigate life's adversities and challenges. That's what we're going to talk about today, so let's go.
Hi, my name is Ronnie Cruz. After almost 2 decades as a career network marketer, I realized that despite continual work on my personal and professional development, that I had hit a massive brick wall. So I took a deep and honest look at myself, top to bottom, hoping to find answers, and my search led me to one conclusion. The definitions I held of my business, of my world, of my life were the very things holding me back. If I wanted to change, if I wanted to grow beyond my current circumstances, I had to wipe the slate clean and redefine. This show is dedicated to helping you identify the belief systems, the mindsets, the very definitions that have held you back, and then help you break through those limitations to finally create the life you've been working so hard to achieve. Welcome to the Redefine Podcast.
Okay, happy podcast day. Happy podcast day to you. Welcome to the show if you're brand new. And of course, if you are an existing listener and or viewer, welcome back. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. All right, so today we're, in keeping in thematically in line with everything that's been going on for the past week and a half, almost 2 weeks, with Hurricane Helene and the destruction and the aftermath. We're still very much in the thick of it. So I wanted to, in reflecting on everything that's been happening and the process that's kind of unfolding as we get back on our feet as a community and as a region, I realized that there are 3 phases of recovery, and that's exactly that, right? Relief, recovery, and rebuild, what I mentioned in the intro. And then in thinking about that, I realized, that's kind of a great process and a natural process that I think we all, in one way, one shape or form or another, follow when we face our own adversities, our own challenges, right? Which ultimately we all do multiple times, many times throughout our lives. And you don't necessarily have to go through a natural disaster such as this, but it's one of those things that, you cannot avoid adversity, and you cannot avoid challenges. It's just part of life, right? It's one of those things that ties us all together as humans. And so to have kind of this framework to use when you're faced with these adversities and challenges, I think will make it that much. I won't necessarily say easy, but at least it'll give you tools to better handle those things, right? To better navigate challenges and adversities. So the first thing is relief. Relief, of course, is the immediate need. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I'm relieved, right? It's the immediate need, addressing the most pressing things first with any challenge and adversity. That's what you want to do, right? Of course, with here, it was making sure that people had a way in and out of their house, right? A lot of the roads were collapsed and impassable. So it was clearing the roads so then that we can get water into these communities, drinkable water. So things like that, the most pressing and immediate needs first. And again, this can apply to whatever challenge or adversity you might be facing in your life. For me, there are parallels with a lot of what I've really kind of major challenges that I've experienced in the last year and a half to actually almost 2 years now. With my business, I had to address the most immediate things first. There was a lot of question as far as like new directions the company was going. There was even a point where a lot of my team and a lot of the distributor field were leaving to join another company. And so in those cases, in those big kind of challenges, I had to address immediate needs of the field, the immediate questions, and the uncertainties, really. So that's what you need to do when you're faced with adversity and challenge. Address the most immediate, prioritized need first, the most emergency type things first. Now, the caveat of this is I want to make sure that you take a moment, at least a short moment, to take a breath and pause before you act, before you make any decisions, right? Because you're obviously, especially if the higher on the scale of the emergency is, you're going to be in a very highly reactive and highly emotional state, which is fine. I mean, that's normal. That's how we're built, right? It's part of our operation systems. However, it's tough to make good decisions when you're in just a completely reactive emotional state. So taking a breath will allow you, hopefully, to just re-engage some of the rational side, the logic side of your brain, and that's going to be really important to then be able to kind of identify what's the most important. Well, it's really it's just to be able to keep your heads about you. Right. You can't make good decisions and you can't take proper action or good action if you're in a state of panic. So take a breath and take a pause and remember to kind of just re-engage that logical side of your brain so that, so that you can act rationally and make good decisions. Right. In addressing the most pressing and the most important things first. All right. So that's relief, and of course, lots of different examples for that. The recovery phase isn't so much that okay, now we're fully recovered or whatever. It's taking, after you've addressed the most immediate needs, right? You can then take even more of a pause, so that you can make better assessments, right? It's assessing the needs, not necessarily for the immediate term or the short term, but kind of for a longer term of time. right. So in relief, you're addressing the most immediate needs right now. In the recovery, you can actually start to take a pause because you take a longer pause and a deeper breath because you've already addressed the most pressing things, and now you can take more time to create a plan for the shorter term, right, for the coming weeks and the coming months. So that way, again, you have a plan of action as opposed to just always being in that relief phase where you're just in an emergency state in your mind and you have no plan, right? So the recovery is really that, just taking stock, taking enough time, taking enough breath and pause to take stock and make a rational and good plan moving forward. Again, with this applies to emergency situations like the hurricane relief efforts and the recovery efforts, as well as with anything in life, right? Again, addressing the immediate needs, but then once those are addressed, just taking a pause and coming up with a good plan, because you can't just wing it, right? You can't just wing it. If you just continue to wing it and be in this reactive zone, where you're only addressing the immediate needs, then it's going to be really difficult to actually get to a rebuild phase because you're always just in this reactive mode, right? So recovery is an important step because, again, it allows you to take a longer pause to kind of reflect and figure out how to move forward so that you can get to the rebuild phase. Rebuild is then, okay, what's the plan, right? Right. What is the plan? And let's put it into action. For here in this region, a lot of it is almost like a clean slate. I mean, I think I said this in the last episode. We're not going to be ever the same ever again. Yes, we're going to plan for contingencies or for things to happen, and for potential future floods and things like that. But it's never going to be the same. This is going to be ingrained and marked in all our memories, and etched in the history of this region. So rebuilding is not rebuilding is not going back and trying to recreate what we had before, but building something better, building something bigger, building something stronger, because having faced and gone through the particular challenges or adversities that you've gone through, you obviously want to build with those in mind, and that does make you better, that does make you stronger, and that does make for a whole new thing. I mean, in essence, we're still mountain folk, we're still Appalachia, but it's going to be a different Appalachia with this experience now under our belt. And so same thing as you're going through your rebuild phase. You have a new experience. You've gone through the challenges and adversities, and so now you have that under your belt in order to rebuild your life into the next chapter, right? Right, and it really works. I mean, like I think those are three good steps to follow when faced, especially on the spectrum of things. If you're facing some really high level challenges and adversities in your life, right? It's important to kind of go through these things in a rational and logical sense, so that you can make the most of it and come out on the other side better and stronger. Now, for me, in kind of touching back on the last episode from this past Tuesday, where I talked about stripping things down to the things that matter to you. Yeah, well, I alluded to this earlier that I have, and without realizing it, employed these three different phases, over the last 2 years, as I've faced a lot of adversity and challenges and just like disruptions in my life, right? Like there's been a lot going on, from the marketing and the business side. My network marketing business was really seeing some challenges, and then my dad passed away last year, and there's just been a lot of changes and a lot of shifts and a lot of challenges, and in reflecting back, I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, I was actually employing or not even cognizant of it, but I was going through these three steps, right? I was going through this process, relief, recover, and rebuild, and in reflecting today, on this episode, I actually hadn't gotten to the rebuild yet, right? I hadn't gotten to the end of the recovery and the rebuild, because I had gotten myself stuck in the relief phase, because I was just reacting to, I kept myself in this kind of relief phase, because I had gotten myself accustomed to expecting the next challenge, which there's always going to be challenges, but I kept myself in that relief phase. And so now that I realize that, I'm very much in the recovery phase, and almost leading into the rebuild phase, as far as like planning out and executing what the next chapters of my journey are going to be. And so in light of that, I and this is what I was going to originally do for today's episode, was just to tell you what I'm shifting in terms of my social media presence and my content creation, but it became so much more in terms of this relief, recover, and rebuild message, but it still applies, right? And so in terms of rebuilding and recovery and rebuilding for me, after having gone through this, and then of course experiencing the hurricane, it allowed me to kind of reflect on what I need to do in my own process. And so recovery and rebuild for me, from my efforts in terms of my work, is, as I mentioned Tuesday, shifting more into the things that really matter to me. And not to say that I didn't love my work in network marketing, and not to say that I'm quitting network marketing. I very much love that. But a lot of my effort was in growing my network marketing business, and kind of using that masculine side of the hustle and the grind, and I got to kind of really strong arm the result. Because of this, I wasn't as magnetic and vibrating on an attractive energy as I have in the past, because I've been neglecting the other things, right? The things that actually, as I said on Tuesday, matter to me the most. And so the recovery, at least the initial plan, is to get back into the more creative things. And so where to find me on social and online, where to find me, and the shifts that I'm making. Of course, keep listening to the podcast. If you haven't yet followed the show, go ahead and follow the show. The subscriptions really help this show grow. So go ahead and hit that plus sign at the top of the app of whatever your app you're listening on. And of course, if you're watching the YouTube, hit this subscribe button. And then beyond that, I am going to start picking back, redoing my Path of the Jedi podcast. It was actually my first podcast, but it's a podcast on Star Wars, which I love. I've been watching a lot of Star Wars recently, getting back into it, and then personal development. So it's a Star Wars personal development podcast. So be on the lookout for that, Path of the Jedi. My socials are still my socials. Facebook is Ronnie Cruz 11. which, I'm not doing as much marketing as I used to. I'm actually not really even paying attention to marketing at all right now. And using social for marketing and influencer marketing and things like that. So I'm using social really more for connecting. So you can find me on Facebook. Threads, I'm really enjoying Threads and using that as a platform to grow my connection. So find me on Threads. I can't remember for the life of me what my Threads is at this point, but I'll leave it in the show notes. I'll leave all of this in the show notes. And then my Instagram, the Ronnie Cruz, which has historically been devoted to kind of me being a coach and a personal development trainer and a network marketer and a marketer. I think I'm going to shift that into music. Music. One of the cool things about this past week, especially when we didn't have power, was I played a lot more music than I have in the recent past. So it was nice getting back into that, and so I think I'm just going to devote that to my music stuff, and not to say that it's like I'm launching a music career necessarily, but it's something that I enjoy and that matters to me because I really like to tune into that creative side, which is why I love doing this podcast. I love to teach and I love to share with people the principles and the techniques and the mindsets that have helped me, but in a creative way, like a podcast, right? And I'm not just teaching in front of a classroom or anything. So the podcast, the YouTube, the Instagram, it's the Ronnie Cruz, by the way. And again, I'll leave a link to all this stuff in the show notes. I'm going to start making a shift and kind of moving towards the creative side of the spectrum and away from further away from the marketing side of things, right, and the business side of things. Of course, on this show, I'll still talk about mindset and business mindset and success mindset. But as far as like my own efforts outside of the teaching and the coaching that I do on this show, I'll be focused more on the creative side, right, which I'm very, very excited about. Yeah, so that's my recovery and rebuild for this next chapter. And I think in doing so, like I said in Tuesday's episode, that I'll be more in alignment with the stuff that matters to me, with my own essence and who I am, and therefore I'll be vibrating in a more attractive frequency to manifest even more of the amazing things that I want to manifest and attract into my life. And so it's a good pattern to follow when you're in the recovery and rebuild. Really pay attention to the things that matter to you the most. So again, it's relief, recover, and rebuild, the three-step process of navigating adversities and challenges that we all naturally face throughout our lives. Okay, so speaking of which, the last thing I want to leave you with is, yes, please, I will ask for your help again. We are still in dire need of help. So I'm going to get up my notes for relief efforts up here in this region. On Tuesday, I mentioned belovedasheville.com. They're doing some great work down in Asheville, providing relief for the local community. Food, water, potable water has been an issue. Drinking water has been an issue. So they're doing amazing. They're doing amazing down there. HotSpringsRecovery.com is for my hometown, Hot Springs. You can find where to donate on all of these sites that I'm going to be giving you. You can find the donation button because we're going to need it. We already need it, but we're going to continue to need it. So I encourage you to please make a donation. And the last one, this just popped up recently, is helpmarshall.org. Helpmarshall.org. That's another community up here in this region that got absolutely decimated. A lot of the businesses and the homes in that area, because it's right on the river and it's low lying. And so the river swept through it and destroyed pretty much everything. So Marshall, North Carolina is in need of your help. Helpmarshall.com. So again, the three links that you can check out and donate to: belovedasheville.com, hotspringsrecovery.com, and helpmarshall.org. hardship.org. Those links will be in the show notes of this episode and the description of this video. Please consider helping. Again, the physical supplies are amazing. Keep those coming. Clothes, winter clothes, especially as it's starting to get cold up here. There are a lot of people that are still displaced and have lost everything. But of course, the financial donations are going to be incredibly important as we get into this, recovery and rebuild, because a lot of people still aren't able to work. A lot of businesses are going. It's going to be months, if not years, before some of these things reopen. So the region is going to need your financial support as the weeks and months, and then eventually years go on, and as we work to rebuild this area. So it'll be greatly, greatly appreciated. Okay. All right, so that's it for this episode. Remember, relief, recover, and rebuild. This 3-step process to navigating adversity and challenges. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you tuning in and giving me a platform to share this stuff with, especially in this time of need. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week and of course weekend. If you are in this region, please stay safe. Reach out to the folks that are providing relief efforts. Reach out to the centers that are providing relief and get somewhere warm, because there are people out here that really are out here to help, and help is here if you need it. So that's going to do it for this episode. We'll catch you next week on Tuesday for a fresh new one. So until then, be well, be safe. We'll see you in the next episode.